Honestly, I mean, it's like we've bottomed out on premiums, and the wholesalers and the retailers are flush with product. So it will go down. Maybe after it all plays out, there'll be greater clarity. But
Enter a world of intrigue and discovery with Andy Schectman of Miles Franklin as he unravels the mysteries shaping the gold and silver markets. In this episode, prepare to be captivated by the latest buzz surrounding global trade dynamics. Delve into the fascinating realm where BRICS nations are crafting alternative trade channels, challenging the traditional dominance of the dollar. Brace yourself for a riveting discussion on premiums, precious metals order flow, and the thrilling developments revolutionizing the landscape of precious metals. Let's listen to Andy again.
I think we're on the cusp of it. It's one of these deals where, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me 775 times, shame on me type of deal where, we're right there at the moving averages. We're right there at the cup and handle, all the technical indications, all of the convergence of the rising wedge, and all of these technical indicators say we're right there. And the world, the events say we're right there. We're living on borrowed time, and it hasn't happened. And I think that's, what have you done for me lately type of deal. And while there's a piece of me that is wholly optimistic that we will see the price move into a territory where it actually deserves to be. I mean, you mentioned just at the onset here that you were on a site visit. You were visiting a mine in Mexico. And I think that's interesting because, if we look at that from a standpoint of what's been going on with mine supply, we read from the Silver Institute that silver mine production fell to its second lowest year ever over the past 10 years, with the exception, I think, of last year, which was lower, if I'm not mistaken. But at the same time, industrial demand grew to its highest level ever. So you have a weak supply and a very strong demand. Not to mention, the last 3 years have been really hallmarked in this industry by silver demand, more so than gold. So you have industrial demand rising, you have monetary demand rising, and according to the Silver Institute, you have mine supply, falling for the second year in a row. And I'm not going to comment on the Pickaxe article other than to say, the Pickaxe wrote a very compelling article about silver's role in the military industrial complex as well. And all the demand for silver that is growing in a world where wars aren't stopping, where green and digital aspirations and utilities are not ceasing, where people are questioning fiat currencies. And I think in many respects look at silver not as an industrial metal, but as money. It is ridiculously, and this is all evidence that it is ridiculously priced too low, in my opinion. But it hasn't translated yet into rising premiums, into decreasing availability, or into an increased awareness to the mainstream. Shockingly, it hasn't. In my mind, I believe we will see that moment. I don't know when it will be or what will trigger it. I guess I believe it will be something to do with the banking problem. But it will come to a point where we will have an environment like we see now, to 180-degree difference, one that will be chaotic, one that will be in an accelerating fashion. It will go from flush availability and low premiums to the antithesis of that, to the opposite of that, to more of what we've seen over the past 4 years. So honestly, I mean, it's like we've bottomed out on premiums, and the wholesalers and the retailers are flush with product. So it will go down. Maybe after it all plays out, there'll be greater clarity. But to me, Chris, it goes down right now as one of the greatest mysteries of my career. Why the public refuses to see what I see so clearly, what you see so clearly, what people listening to the show see so clearly, and what it will take for that awareness to be brought to the forefront. We're not there yet, not even by a large margin. We're not there. But yet I really do believe it's coming. And for those who have been cost averaging, those who have been de-dollarizing, well, you've picked a great time to do it. You're not too late. A lot of people think, well, maybe we're too late. No, you're not even close to it. So it's a great time to be accumulating gold and silver. I think there's very little downside in silver right now and massive upside. So no, nothing. We haven't seen anything that would lead me to believe that we are that close to that moment where crossing over that Rubicon where, look, I mean, just based upon industrial and monetary demand versus a second year in a row of shortfalls in mine supply, it should be a whole hell of a lot higher. Not to mention so many of these deals that we're seeing where silver is disappearing off of the exchanges. It's being done so in a way that it's very difficult to see. It's like being taken right from the source or coming out of the ETFs, or, you got 60 million ounces that were delivered to India in the month of October, 10 million ounces into China in the month of October, 25.8 million ounces in Turkey in 2023 in silver imports, all of 3.53 million ounces of silver that came out of the ETFs on Friday of last week. I mean, so, where's it all coming from? Where's it all going? And why aren't the prices reflective of it is a mystery to me. But I believe it will, like that, switch. I don't know what the switch is that triggers that moment, but in my heart, so help me God, I believe that's coming. That's maybe why we saw the rise of exchange for physical. And I also think this is why we're seeing silver is traded over the counter, for lack of a better definition. And I think you're seeing deals in both gold and silver in increasing quantities being done off exchange for that reason. And supply and demand is being satisfied elsewhere. And whether that means BlackRock taking huge possession off of PSLV, or authorized participants draining the ETFs, or exchange for physical, or draining the Shanghai Gold Exchange, or they're getting more creative, going directly to the mines, directly to the source. They're getting more creative. I mean, I think it reeks of the end of the game. I mean, because in 2020, they took so much silver off of the COMEX, it was more than we typically would see in a decade. Well, that caught everyone's attention. Well, then they shift to exchange for physical. And then they start taking it out of the ETFs. And, you got Keith Neumeyer saying he goes to a conference a few months ago. For the first time ever, you see auto manufacturers at these conferences who are looking to disintermediate COMEX and the bullion banks and go right to the First Majestics of the world and buy silver that way. So I think it's an environment where all of these countries, I think, would be remiss to let us know exactly what they are producing and or importing. And if they are able to accumulate with greater privacy, I think it behooves them. And I have a feeling that, depending upon who you talk to, the gold held by Russia and China is many, 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 many times higher than what they are telling us. Well, I would think the same thing would be true with silver. Look, 2024 is going to be a crazy year any way you look at it, with the election and with the fact that you now have this bank term funding lending program that's at all-time highs, $100+ billion, that sunsets in March 2024, where this money has to be paid back. And there are banks out there that have borrowed as much as 130 or 40% of their equity from the Fed to stay afloat. And I think between the banks, between the economy, between the election, 2024 is going to be a year to remember. It's going to be a year that the history books write about. And maybe that's why you're seeing such an overt drive over the last couple of years to de-dollarize and position before what could be, maybe the most important election of our lifetimes, really, in many respects, and the ramifications of it going either way. So I don't know, man. I'm glad to have a front row seat to it and to talk about it with guys like you who are smart enough to add color to it and oftentimes correct me on my overzealous estimations or, maybe not so exact proclamations. But you know where I'm coming from, and you know what I think is going to happen. And I just think it's great to be able to talk to people about this, because I think the next year, like actually the next year from right now, will be the craziest year in most of our lives, if I had to bet. I really, truly do believe that.
The intricate web of global trade dynamics and the burgeoning developments within the BRICS nations shed a curious light on the future of gold and silver markets. Remember to stay informed, stay curious, and keep an eye on the evolving landscape of premiums and order flow in the precious metals sphere. Thank you for joining us, and until next time, may your curiosity continue to spark new discoveries in this fascinating world. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel if you liked today's video. Thank you.